Hi there, it's Gemma Fisher here from Daybreak Dogs in North Somerset, coming to you with today's Friday Fisher Fix. Apologies that I'm running a little bit late. Good girl, Dee. We live in a lovely old house, but the thick walls apparently have a really bad effect on the Wi-Fi. So finding a spot that, even if I've used the spot before in the past to do the live Friday Fisher Fixes, for some reason we still have issues occasionally. So anyway, I'm online now and we're good to go. So today, another movie reference for you. So this one, Wizard of Oz this week, and I was thinking to myself this week in the lessons that I've been teaching. I've done varied teaching this week, just to give you an idea. After I saw you last Saturday I did some agility training in the morning. Saturday afternoon I did some young dog training, and young dog training is always really super cool as far as I'm concerned, because they maybe are considered the naughtiest of the naughty, but I quite like naughty dogs, so I'm all on board with that. So that was Saturday afternoon. Sunday I was involved with my partner Martin. He was running one of our fun agility shows, and so I got to take part with some of my dogs in the fun agility show, which was cool, because it's nice to get a little bit of competition in there. Then in the afternoon I got to do some of my sports style training, and I love my sports style training because it's young dogs that are sort of destined for agility careers, if you like, and it was quite fun going through some bits and pieces with them there. So that was just the weekend, so that was quite a lot all just in the weekend. And this week, the bits and pieces that I've been up to this week, there's been a common thread of either the home visits, the one-to-ones that I've done. I had a new puppy class start this week. There's been a common thread throughout all of the lessons that I've been doing, and it's almost like you all have your own magic wands. So you all have your own magic wands for your own dog, and that magic wand will look different for the dog that you are dealing with. So the magic wand that works for my dogs is not necessarily going to work for your dogs, because it's all about reinforcement. Okay, now reinforcement is kind of our fancy scientific term for rewards, and rewards are an interesting thing, and we just need to have a think about those first off. Mostly when I say to people, how do you reward your dog, or what do they like to be rewarded with, they'll tell me something like cheese or chicken or ham or, you know, yada yada yada, and that's fine. Those things are reinforcing for the dog. Depending on the dog, some dogs prefer some treats while others like other ones, but that's one area of potential reinforcement. Now it's one area which is easy for us to use, because it's easy for us to cut up treats and have the treats in our pocket and use those in training. But in actual fact, dogs have many more ways of being reinforced than just those things, and the particularly naughty dogs, the ones that often are coming to me for one-to-ones, or they're young dogs that are starting to learn that they can get out and about and do things, those dogs, those are very creative about what they see to be reinforcing, okay? And these things can be breed specific. So for example, my border collies, some of them love to work sheep. And that obviously is very natural, very hereditary for them, that they've been bred to herd. So, you know, chasing and things comes very naturally to them. Elle, come in here. I know. But equally, Ella, do you want to come in here? Yeah? Can you sit? Good girl. Ella, when I took her to the sheep, she did not like sheep. She was very afraid of sheep. So just because she's a border collie with a great heritage does not mean that Ella wants to do sheep. So again, even with breed specific things, you're looking at each individual dog as to what things that they like to do. So say that's border collies. What breeds of dogs do you spend your lives with, as to coming up with ideas? What things do your dogs maybe naturally like to do? So have we got any gun dog owners on there? So gun dogs are traditionally dogs that love to pick stuff up and hold on to stuff. That's obviously a bit of a gun dog trait. I think terriers love to kill stuff, love to grab hold of things that are running and moving and make them stop running and moving. So yeah, squeaky toys don't tend to be safe in terrier type homes. So yeah, so those sorts of things are things to bear in mind when you're talking about reinforcement for your dog. And it's so important to know what that reinforcement is for your dog, because we can't train a dog that we cannot reinforce in some way, shape or form. Because if we don't have something that we can use that the dog wants, why would they be with us? There's just no need, is there? So some of the both the trickiest and some of the easiest dogs I've worked with are dogs and owners that come to classes and they bring, maybe their dog has dry biscuit, or they bring some of their dog's everyday kibble that they give them morning and evening for breakfast and dinner. And those things are fairly easy to fix, because if I switch those dry kibble biscuits for a piece of liver cake, generally that gets a dog's attention. So that's a place to start. But one thing that's worth noting, guys, if you have a dog that is not fussed about food when they're out and about, and it doesn't matter what stuff that you try, whether or not you try delicious liver cake or ham or chicken or cheese or any things that maybe they normally like at home, one thing worth thinking about is whether or not that dog actually is too worried to take treats, and actually whether or not stress is getting in the way of them taking food. And that's something that you know, a trainer or a behaviourist should be able to advise and help you with. But I would suggest that you probably need that help. Can you lie down, please? Thank you, that's super. So that's reinforcement. That's what that is to begin with. And as I say, reinforcement for dogs looks as different as it does for people. Oh, cool, we've got 2 Jack Russells on. Cool, hi Wendy. Because things like, for example, I use this example a lot in my one-to-ones actually, that say I'm in Paris, somebody's taken me to Paris and I'm on a trip, and there's the opportunity to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Well, do you know what? I'd be really excited about that. I think that would be really quite a cool thing to do. But I also know that my mum, who hates heights, would rather, you know, poke pins in her eyes than go up to the top of the Eiffel Tower and see that view at the top of the Eiffel Tower. She'd be very happy if I took a picture and brought it down for her. That would be fine. So, Rottweiler and GSD. Yes, Mandy. So your guys, of course, are more built for guarding. So they enjoy looking after stuff and guarding things. So yeah, each of the breeds has kind of a different characteristic. And that reinforcement then obviously, you know, is going to be different from dog to dog. So yeah, so things like as simple as, you know, do I want to go and see a beautiful view at the top of something high? If you don't like heights, you don't want to do that, and that's not reinforcing for you. Whereas if you you enjoy doing things like that, then that will be reinforcing for you. And I'm sure you can come up with different examples. For example, I have a friend that loves going shopping, and actually she only teased me last week about my fashion sense, and truthfully, I have to say, the most fashionable pieces of clothing I own, she bought. So thank you, Helen, if you're watching. But, you know, shopping, like I can do maybe a couple of hours every, I don't know, 12 months or so up at the Mall. But it's not something I want to do every Saturday. I don't know about you guys. What would be your favourite activity? What would be your favourite thing? If I said to you, you could do anything this weekend, what would you like to do? I'm guessing that some of you are likely to say things like, quite like go dog training, do my agility training, that sort of a thing. I know for me, what have I got planned this weekend? Oh, later this afternoon, I'm going to go and train vodka at Devon Dogs with a European handler, trainer. I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, so I kind of don't want to say it, but Teresa Kravlova, I think that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. But it's not everybody's cup of tea. You know, as I say, reinforcement is different from person to person as it is dog to dog. So you've got to kind of bear that in mind. Mandy, out with my dogs hiking. Yes, I like going out for a good hike. I love going up to the Mendips for that. The Mendips are a really good... I mean, we're lucky, actually. We've got so many beautiful walks that we can go to. But yeah, really nice long hike with the dogs is a really, really good way to go. So we've got... Okay, so we've got... All right, we've thought about what our dogs find reinforcing. But here's the thing. It's often a bit more subtle than even... treats, toys and activities. It's sometimes a bit more subtle than that. So the Sports Star group that I taught last Sunday morning, we were doing some work on jumping grids. It's something that we do to prepare our young agility dogs for the job that they're going to be doing later on. And it was like, it wasn't completely brand new to these handlers, but some of the information that I was giving, they were really concentrating hard. They're a really great bunch of people. And one of the things that can happen is that when we're in a dog training class and we're really concentrating what the instructor is saying, or trying to really take on the information and really like log it in our brains, is that what happens is we kind of shut down to our dog a little bit. And I see this in agility a lot, because obviously agility is something where people are having to do not only listening skills, but also motor skills of being able to move their feet, their arms, their upper body and things in different directions. So I say these guys were really concentrating on what I'd asked them to do, and really interesting side effect of that was where they were really, really concentrating on what they were doing. They brought their puppies out to do each of the exercises, and the puppies kind of went, yeah, this isn't so much fun for me. Off I go. I'm going to go and wander around this arena that I find myself in, because that's much more fun. And here's the thing, it's not like these people aren't experienced handlers, or that they're not good at what they do, because they're brilliant handlers, and I've loved teaching them. We've got our last session on Sunday. I've loved teaching them, and their puppies are really coming along really well. But as I say, it's a very familiar problem. You're concentrating, and something that you don't realise is that your attention is very reinforcing to your dog. And so when you take your attention away, be it that you're on your mobile phone, be it that you're listening to an instructor like these guys were, be it that you maybe have had a bad day at work and actually your brain is still in that bad day at work as opposed to there in the training session with your dog. Or even, it may not even be a training session, but it might be you're going out and about on a walk. You know, if you're not present for your dog, what your dog will quite often do is they'll go, do you know what, there's no reinforcement here available for me because you're just not here with me. So they'll wander off and they'll find something else to do. So, and particularly, I notice this with younger dogs particularly, that when we are not there for younger dogs, older dogs, you can get away with it to a degree, especially if you've got a good relationship with that older dog. That, yeah, of course, there's going to be times where you kind of switch off, that you go away in your own little world and you know, certainly with my older dogs, I don't have to worry so much because they know their job. But when you are learning something new, and you're learning something, and you and the dog are learning something new, that you're learning alongside each other, your dog needs that information and that reinforcement for you. And do you know what? It's hard. It really is hard learning something new and then being expected to translate it to the dog that's on the end of your lead as well. But this is where it's really, really important that we try and see it from their perspective, that they're not being naughty, they're not shutting down on us, they're not intentionally putting two fingers up to us and saying, no, I'm not interested in what you have to say. It's just that if we shut down to them, then they kind of go, well, there's nothing here for me then. There's nothing, you know, there's no possibility of reinforcement, there's no reason for me to hang around. So that's something I would challenge you all to do on your walks this weekend. If you have a training session this weekend, have a think about remaining really, really present for your dog, so that whether or not it goes well or it goes badly, that you are like fully in the moment with them and they're getting feedback all of the time about whether or not they were correct or whether or not they weren't correct, okay? I see this with Toddy, who's just coming to 5 months now. So he's a young border collie. He loves people, other dogs. He's a very sociable young man, and yet, when we are there in a training session, it's like we're in a movie and we only have eyes for each other. And it truly is. Like, I think he's amazing. So, yeah, you know, I'm slightly biased. But it is about that our ability to really be focused and switched in on each other, that even at 5 months, bless his heart, is really, really good. And that's because I'm very practiced at it. I'm very capable of going, I can split my attention and make sure that you still have some of my attention and concentrate else here, but still make my puppy feel like, you know what, he's the centre of my universe. Which, anytime I do a training session with my dogs, I really do try to be there with them. It's something I found personally very, very difficult. And switching off from like being a mum and a business owner and all of that stuff. And I'm sure you guys have got things that, you know, get in the way of your dog training adventures. But if you can switch all of that off and really just be there with your dog, you'll notice a huge difference in performance. Now, the other thing about that attention is, as well as that in itself being reinforcing, Here's the difference between you are going out with a friend who has planned a lovely day out, and they seem to have everything sorted. They've got tickets bought for places, and they've got, you know, maybe the sat nav is all set up with how you're going to get there. There's fuel in the tank of the car ready to go. Going out with that person as opposed to the person who turns up, they're running late. We've got to stop at the petrol station because I'm almost out of petrol. Yeah, I think it's somewhere up in, up north. So we're going to go up somewhere up north. Have you bought tickets? No, haven't bought tickets. I'm sure it'll be fine once we get there. You know, we're going to go on a 3-hour drive, and yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. So how do you feel out of those two friends? Who do you feel more confident with, and who do you feel more likely to have a good day with? Now, of course, there are exceptions to every rule, but from your dog's perspective, this is what it feels like when you're in a training session, and when you say the word sit, you're saying, I know everybody kind of, yeah, I know, it's okay, you can all stand down. The difference between you saying the word sit in a really confident tone of voice and sit, you know, with a question mark at the end of it. Now, we see this a lot in our agility classes, that where people are really not sure about where they're going, maybe we've set a sequence which is a bit longer than normal, and maybe they've got 8 to 10 obstacles that they have to remember, that the ability to be able to say the instructions needed for all of those 8 obstacles with confidence is really difficult, because you don't feel that confidence. And you'll regularly hear me say to my classes, we've got to practice a little bit of fake it till we make it. And so much of dog training is like that. Our dogs rely on us to know what's going on. It's very like having children in some respects, that your child, when they're out and about with you, they don't want you to be going, oh my goodness, I don't know what's going to happen, and panicking and generally being a bit stressed. They want you to know what's going on. They want you to be in charge of things. So bear that in mind when you are when you're doing stuff with your dogs, that it's being present. That's really reinforcing for your dogs, actually being there with them. Hopefully you know what I mean by that, but if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments and we'll discuss it a bit more. But being present, and also being confident about what you're asking them to do. So there aren't any question marks in the things that you're saying to the dogs. So when you know what, my dogs, and this maybe will surprise some people watching, but my dogs regularly surprise me. Like, even though I know that they've done lots of training and I understand the science of reinforcement, and that, you know, I've proofed behaviours that I've taught them and all of this sort of thing, they still amaze me. They still impress me. I still think that when they do something which I would consider difficult for them, say Toddy last weekend. I'm sorry to keep harping back to Toddy, but Toddy at the moment is really, really blowing my mind, because he just keeps doing stuff where I'm like, wow, how did you get so good? In fact, no, I tell you, last weekend he was brilliant, but there was a occasion in the week we were out walking, and I had 3 wins on this particular walk with him, and it was really super cool. Here are the 3 wins. The first win was somebody was playing with their dog, and they were throwing a frisbee, and you know, he's a border collie, he likes to chase stuff. He's in mid-chase towards this golden retriever. I call him and he goes, oh, yes mum, what can I do for you? And he comes running back. So win number 1, and awesome, well done, fabulous. And because I thought it was amazing, and I do think it's amazing, the reinforcement I gave him was appropriate to that level of task. Now, this is where sometimes people go a bit wrong, because whereas some people that might happen, and it may not be happening with you guys right now, but it may be that at the beginning, when you first started training your dog, that's what happened. But maybe you kind of took it for granted, or you rewarded with something that you deemed rewarding, but you know what, your dog didn't find it rewarding. Okay, so it's like when people turn up and they're using dry biscuits for training treats, and the dog's like, oh look, there's a squirrel. There's something else going on. You know, that, you know, if the level of reinforcement isn't appropriate to the task that the dog has just completed, then why would they repeat that in the future? It just doesn't make any sense, does it? So say, going back to this this example, so Toddy came straight off and came straight back to me, and he got an amazing game of tug. And you know what? It was an amazing game of tug because I was super impressed with him, and I let him know about it. And any of you that have seen me play with my dogs, we're having a lovely time. But here's another interesting piece of the puzzle in terms of reinforcement for me. I think dogs, and you can say if you think differently, but I think dogs get that feeling of being right and having worked it out and figured it out and got the right answer. I think they enjoy that as much as they do the cheese or the chicken or the toy or the whatever it is that you're using to reward them. And leading on from this is how I would say that I know this, is so Toddy's done a beautiful recall. He's come back to me. I've left him with his toy, like we've had a tug, and then I've let him keep his toy because he likes possession of his toy. So again, that's reinforcing for him. So second win of the morning, as far as I was concerned, my puppy turned around to me and was like, "Hey mum, can we do some training?" Well, that's awesome, isn't it? That's what we're aiming for from all of our dogs, is that they're not like, oh, training, you know, and it's really dull and it's really boring for them. We're looking for, oh, can we do some more of that? I really enjoy it when we do that. Come on, let's have a session. So as I say, win number 2 was him asking me, could we start a training session? And truth be told, we're coming down Cadbury Hill, which is quite a steep slope down this hill. It's really, really muddy at the moment, so I'm having difficulty staying on my feet, but my puppy's requested and he's been so nice about it and he's done such a good job that I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm playing some of his training games with him and we're out and about in the open. He's doing a really great job. And I thought to myself, you know what? Let's just try something. And truth be told, when I sometimes try stuff with my dogs, it doesn't always work. It doesn't always come off. But I've got to the point where when I'm training my dogs, I don't worry too much about the outcome. That I think more about my reaction to it than I think about the outcome. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not the end of the world. Nobody died. But yeah, so I'm trying something new. And the trying something new was, for those of you that done any of the Kennel Club Good Citizen Scheme awards, in the Gold Award, one of the things that the dogs have to do is they have to be able to stop either on their way to you or on their way away from you, on their way to a toy or something. And it's something that the older dogs know how to do, and we practice, obviously, you know, in real life context. When we're out and about on a walk, I'll ask them to lie down if people are coming towards us, that sort of thing. Anyway, my amazing, sweet little puppy, I throw out his toy, I release him onto it, so he's running towards his little toy, I ask him to lie down, and you know what? He doesn't do it with the confidence of the older dogs, but he goes, oh, I know that one, lay down, and then of course, I told him, okay, go get it. And he could have his toy. And I just genuinely, like, we had a big party, big celebration after that, because it was an amazing achievement for such a young puppy to be able to listen even when he was excited and in arousal. And you know, it's a really super cool thing for him to have done. Now, when I explain stuff to people and people are doing stuff with their pups, or when they're doing stuff with their adult dogs as well, there's often a time delay between dog doing something brilliant and then the reinforcement coming in. And here's a really important thing, guys. You have a very, very small window between your dog being correct and your dog being reinforced in order that your dog knows that those two events were connected. Because if you leave it 10 minutes, wander off, have a cup of tea and then come back and reward your dog has absolutely no concept of what you thought you were rewarding them for. So if I had waited, if I'd paused even just maybe 5 seconds and then released Toddy onto his toy, the moment would have passed and he would have, as far as he's concerned, I think be being reinforced with something different. If you want them to understand that they are brilliant at something, you must make sure that the reinforcement comes very, very quickly afterwards, or that you use something like a marker, like a clicker, or some sort of, we use bridging words where I will say, good, yes, super, that, and I'll draw out a word, and that means, yeah, you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing, and that's also a way of kind of keeping the moment going, if you like. But it must happen, as I say, quite quickly, because otherwise the dog won't know. And this is the thing I think I find most when people are learning dog training or learning agility training, when we do agility training, is that where you are thinking and your brain is kind of ticking over and your little grey cells are working, you don't get that feedback across the dog quickly enough. And the trouble with that is that, as I say, they the moment passes and maybe you reward them for something different, and Or maybe you don't reward them at all. By that point, they just think they're getting a free treat. They don't realise it was anything to do with what you asked them to do. So speed of reinforcement is really, really crucial when you're teaching something new. Or teaching something difficult. Anytime I'm asking my dogs to do something difficult, they'll get reinforced really quickly afterwards. So that they're getting a big tick for a job well done. Okay, so that's what type of reinforcement. Okay, thinking about what types of reinforcement we might use. Having a little think about where we're using them, okay, and how we're using them in order to be able to reward the dogs. Finally, lastly, the thing I wanted to just talk about was placement of reinforcement, okay. Now this is something that I've done a lot of work of from the perspective of being an agility handler in training quite specific tasks for agility dogs. And I have Susan Garrett to thank for an awful lot of information on this particular area, which I think is really, really crucial to why lots of things are going wrong with dogs. And that is that the placement of where you put this reinforcement is really, really key to the dog's understanding of what it did, what it was that it did that caused you to be happy and like that, okay? So, simple example. How many actually, by a show of your like button, hitting your like button, how many of your dogs that just on a verbal cue alone, how many of them will just go into a lie down if you just ask them to lie down? And you don't have to do anything like bringing a treat down or pointing to the floor or anything like that. All right, how many, by just a show of likes, how many of the dogs can do that? Oh my goodness, I got no likes. And yet I have people on that I know dogs can do that. So maybe I just can't see them. Oh, I have a like. Oh, I have another like. Look at them coming across the screen. Awesome. You see, I have to do this occasionally, guys, just to make sure you're all awake. Ah, Loki can do it. Perfect. Can't young man do it, Mandy? I'm pretty sure he can do it as well, can't he? Apologise, the girls are busy guarding me at the back here. Al, Jay, can you come down, please? I know, nobody wants your bum in the shop. Good grief, no. So lying down is a really good area because if, I don't know if you guys will remember when you were first teaching your dogs to lie down, but one of the things that sometimes goes wrong with the lie down is where people are placing the treat. And I have something that I fondly refer to as the hovercraft position. And the hovercraft position is when the dog is neither in a sit and they're neither in a lie down, they're kind of somewhere in the middle. Now, that somewhere in the middle has come about because of placement of reinforcement. So it's a really good example for what I'm talking about. When you feed the dog in a lie down straight to their mouth, what tends to happen is the dog is then paying attention to the fact that it went into their mouth. All right, which means that the hovercraft starts to appear because the dog is very helpfully kind of coming up to help you put that treat into their mouth a little bit quicker. All right, so when we reward our dogs in a lie down, in that space in between their legs, when we reward them there, what happens is the dog's like, well, the reinforcement always comes from the floor. It always comes from being down here. So what happens is the dog doesn't bother with the hovercraft because the hovercraft never pays off because the food isn't coming to their mouth anyway. It has to touch the floor before they get it. So placement of reinforcement in that particular instance means the difference between a dog that understands that lying down is what you wanted or that funny hovercraft thing is what you wanted. And unfortunately, people reinforce it inadvertently by feeding when the dog is in the hovercraft position, because sometimes they can be just so pleased that the dog went into that lie down that even when they sort of come up to have their treat, that doesn't bother them too much. I'm a control freak, so it bothers me. But, you know, you guys know this about me, so that's fine. So that's just one instance of placement of reinforcement. Another place is when we are rewarding dogs for being on their beds. Again, if we throw the treat onto the bed, we're making the reinforcement about the bed as opposed to it being about where it is in our hand. Now, if the dog believes that the food always has to come from our hand, why would they move away from us in order to go and get on their bed? Because they're moving away from the food. Now, yes, there's some other bits of training involved in terms of dogs understanding about choice and that, you know, that they need to do the thing that we ask in order to get the thing that they want. Yes, there's stuff that goes on there, but we really, really speed up the process, guys, when we think about that placement of reinforcement and where the reinforcement is coming from. And dogs just pick it up and understand it so much better if we're just smart and we're a bit savvy about that. Does that all make sense? I hope so. because, as I say, it's such a useful thing in teaching any of your just ordinary behaviours, as I say, like teaching a lie down, teaching a bed. But if your dog doesn't understand, as we looked at last week, we have this disparity between you believe your dog understands this over here, your dog understands this over here, and the two things are just a really long way away. And I feel like it's my job as your dog training helper to bring those two things together. So there's not such a big gap between those two things. All right, cool. Okay, so that was kind of what I wanted to talk about today. As I say, you have the magic wand for your dog training. You may not believe it, you may not feel like you have it at the moment, but it's all about reinforcement. It's all about how the dogs are being reinforced. And often problems occur when dogs are getting reinforced for things that we would rather they didn't. So when a dog... for example, I know Mandy, I hope you don't mind me using you, Mandy, as an example, but I know Mandy is struggling with her two boys barking in the back of her car. Now, it's a German Shepherd and a Rottweiler, so what would be very natural for passers-by, you're walking past this car, two big dogs bark at you from inside the car, you're going to speed up a little bit. You're going to walk a little bit quicker to get out of the way, okay? There is a huge amount of reinforcement for a dog then, because what they've done is their job of guarding your car, Mandy, has been really, really successful. So it's made the people move on by, which is what they wanted in the first place. So, and one of the things that we should be aware as well is that when dogs are getting reinforced by something that is genetically part of who they are, so for my dogs when they're chasing, I say Vodka, I had the devil's own job to begin with her, because chasing was such a reinforcing behaviour. The genetic, I think of it a bit like a button. I mean, this is not a technical thing by any stretch, but to give you guys an idea, I think of their genetics as being like a button in their head. And whenever they are performing something which is part of their DNA, part of who they are, that they are getting like... a huge rush. It's like a drug to their brain of a huge amount of reinforcement, because it's so natural to them. It's part of who they are. So this is why, as much as possible, we want to manage environments in order that they don't practice those things. So, for example, Mandy, I know it wouldn't be perhaps that easy because of you having big dogs, but one piece of advice for, say, people with smaller dogs would be, if your dog is crated in the car and maybe covered over by a blanket, it can't see people walking past, therefore it can't practice barking at people walking past. I mean, Mandy, I don't want to suggest changing your vehicle, but like a van like mine is perfect, because my dogs don't get the practice of barking at people. Hello. Oh, that's very sweet. What are we doing? Did you miss something? So my dogs in the van, they don't get the practice of barking at people to get them to move away from the van, because they can't see out of the van, so it's not... It doesn't become something that's a reinforcing activity for them. So, I don't know, just putting it out there, man, you might want to think about a change of vehicle, possibly. But, so that's one example. I have friends with standard poodles. Hi, Charlotte, just seen Charlotte's joined. Charlotte's got a miniature poodle. Martin, my partner, has a poodle. You know, the poodles like guarding. So any time that they are practicing guarding, lol, Mandy, I thought of blacking out the windows. Yeah, blacking out the windows is a way of doing it. The thing is, I think you'd have to really, you'd have to make it see-through, because if they can see anything through, then it's likely to trigger still, I would think. But I say, any time that the dog is doing something they were naturally, is part of who they are, they're getting a massive rush of endorphins and feel-good stuff. So we must, first off, manage their access to reinforcement opportunities like that. That might be through visually blocking that out. It might be through keeping them on leads or long lines in particular scenarios. And then alongside all of that, we're training them in compatible behaviours. So one of the things I'm most pleased about with Vodka is that I can now have her in a group class. I had her in a group class last night, and she can hang out on a table. She can hang out on a bed, sometimes not her own bed. Sorry, Nick, if you're watching. She loves Nick's dog, Cooper, and poor Cooper was made to share his bed on a couple of occasions last night when he hadn't asked, really. But she's able to hang out in those situations because there's been a lot of reinforcement for, we can be around agility and you do not need to chase the dog doing agility. But as I say, when she first arrived, that was just, she wanted it to be her turn all of the time, and didn't mind that it was anybody else's turn. She was just going to kind of join in with them. So as I say, reinforcement is simple in one respect, but it's also potentially what's causing some of the issues that you're having as well. Because, as I say, if dogs are finding something reinforcing, through the activities that they're doing and they're inappropriate, then you will keep getting those things, because reinforcement builds behaviour. That's the really key thing, guys. And what we're aiming for is that we are in control of that reinforcement, in order that any of the behaviours that are being built are ones that we thought of, we came up with, and that they fitted in with our lifestyles and with our things. And this is where, of course, if we come back full circle, it's really, really important for us to think about the breeds that we choose our lives with. Border Collies, for example, they're not for everybody. They're control freaks. They are very pushy dogs. They'd make crap sheepdogs if they weren't. They like to chase stuff. All of those things in some environments make them a really bad choice of dog. For me, it works beautifully and I love them. But again, going back to what makes them tick, it's really important that fits with our lifestyles, in order that we don't have to change who the dog is in order to be able to fit into our world. But I think, you know what, I'm preaching to the choir here, guys. I know that you lot are all on board with that. And I know that the dogs that you spend your lives with, it's not necessarily just because of the training activities that you do with them, that they're loved for being who they are. And they are dogs first, and then, agility competitors or whatever second. All right? Cool. Okay, I've got to get myself ready, otherwise I'm going to be late down to Devon. So I'm going to go and get myself ready now, and I'm going to leave you on that note of thinking about reinforcement this weekend, thinking about in your training sessions what reinforcement looks like in terms of food and toys, but also what reinforcement is your dog getting for maybe behaviours that you don't like at the moment. So it might be barking at people when they're in the car. It might be chasing people that are playing football in the park. It could be I don't know. Oh, I have one lady that has a terrier that likes to go down badgers sets, which obviously is not something that we want to encourage. So, whatever it is, think about how could I prevent access to that reinforcement, and also what could I train as an alternative to behaving like that. Hey, Ruth. Just caught the end. Been to yoga. Ooh, I'm impressed. Do you know, I was just watching... No, I was at the hairdressers this morning, and I was reading a magazine, and they were saying that there were some really good yoga poses that are very, very good for relaxation and things. And I was just smiling to myself because I'm so bad at just sitting still. Yoga was probably a really good idea for me. But I remember going to one yoga class a long time ago with my mum, and we just giggled our way through it. We were, all the slow breathing and the staying still stuff. It wasn't really my mum and I very much. We're a bit too busy. Cool. Well, I hope you had fun anyway. So yeah, this weekend, have a think about reinforcement. Think about how it's affecting your dog at the moment, and if you have any specific questions about particular scenarios, then do just post them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them if I can for you. Some places that you can also find potential answers through watching my dogs. I've got 2 Facebook groups which actually I've made available for people to come and have a look at. One is, as I think some of you watching will be familiar with, one of them is Toddy's Puppy Diaries, and it's been so much fun adding photos and videos and building that little community there of people with puppies and relatives of Toddy as well, and getting to know everybody. That is a great place if you are struggling with a particular issue. That there's quite a lot of information and answers in there about how I do stuff, so probably find some answers in there. The second place, for those of you maybe with slightly older dogs, Vodka Sour is now 2 years old. She turned 2 on the 16th of January, and she has her own private Facebook group as well, where I post her videos and the training things that we're doing. And in actual fact, there's a really, really interesting thing that I will be posting later about that. And again, comes back to reinforcement. It's been all about reinforcement this week, about how we've cracked some of her dog walk training. Which for a little while has been a source of frustration to me. But yeah, we hit on it last Sunday. We did some work, and I tried it out again last night, and it seems that we may have found the solution. So yeah, you're very welcome to come and join me in either of those areas there, for more help and advice. Anyway, meanwhile, if you want to be kept up to date with the Friday Fisher Fix, which obviously is happening, it's about 1 o'clock. I try and do it each Friday. If you're interested in being kept informed of when that's going to happen and also what I'm going to be talking about, then by all means, if you're on the Facebook page now, just look on the sign up button. And if you click on the sign up button, you will see options to be added to the email list, and then I can keep in touch with you that way. There's also, I'm really, really proud of this actually. It's a really cool free resource, which if you look at the or if you're on your computer, you'll see it down the side of your screen. It's a little tab that says free resources. If you click on there, you'll also find that I've put together my top 10 tips about how to have more stress-free dog walks, because I know that one of the things that people are feeding back to me is that one of the things they struggle with is going out walking with their dogs, and sometimes that they find it stressful when they're going out about walking with their dogs. So I've put together some tips which I'm getting feedback have been very, very helpful to people. So by all means, click there and get a download of that information as well. Right then, as I say, I could talk for England on the subject of dogs because it is my most favourite topic in the whole world. But I'm going to wake Vodka up to go. I've got to show you this, guys. So Vodka we've had a very busy morning actually, and I haven't taken them out yet. And so this is my 2-year-old Border Collie, who, when she arrived, was full of beans and quite difficult to manage. Let me just show you where she is now. Right. Okay, this is Vodka Sour, who, Vodka, I got an ear. Hello, hi, good girl. Oh, is this a tired girl? Is my 2-year-old Border Collie, who is obviously very highly strung and stressed and, you know, woken up at not having had a walk. I just got to show you. Stretches are so funny. Hey, baby girl. You ready to go? We do some training? You got some energy to do some training? Well, I do hope so. I do hope so. Anyway, I'm going to go wake her up and get her down to Devon, and we're going to go and do our training session this afternoon. Wish us luck. It's with a lovely, lovely lady from Europe, Teresa Kravlovas, who is a, I think, European champion, world champion agility. So we're excited to go and do that. Well, I'm excited to go and do that, as you can see. Vodka is more relaxed about the whole thing. But yeah, wish us luck, because the Europeans, they play agility hard. We are going to be worked hard this afternoon, but that's all good. Anyway, have a lovely weekend. I hope the weather stays. It looks like it's going to be a cold one where we are in North Somerset. But yeah, have a good weekend. Think about reinforcement this weekend and how it's affecting your life with your dog at the moment. Pop in the comments below if there's any particular questions that you have. And as I say, feel free to join those Facebook group, guys, because it would be really nice to get to know you and talk a bit after the live broadcast. Perfect. I will enjoy your dogs this weekend, and I will see you next Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.